Welcome to the What's Your Truth podcast, the show that not only showcases the best of independent artists, but also explores what inspires them, what drives them, and what they consider their fundamental purpose as an artist to be. Today on the show, we have Ann-Marita Garsed, originally from Norway and transcending genres, borders, and generations with her artistic wizardry. Ann-Marita's sound is the perfect blend of familiarity and flair, sentiment and style. She is like the comfort food of music, giving you all the delicious remnants of times past and all the feels you would expect to come out of all things timeless, and yet just the right dash of sonic cayenne pepper to keep things fresh, new, and exciting. Vocally, Ann-Marita's is the perfect combination of delicate and sultry with notes of Jewel and hints of Linda Ronstadt and Shelby Lynn to whet your sonic palate. Her writing style and instrumentation is in a league with the folk and country greats of yesterday and today, including the likes of Carrie Underwood, Dolly Parton, and of course, Willie Nelson. A storyteller in the truest sense of the word, and as independent artist comes, Ann-Marita has performed throughout the world in places ranging from Alaska to Berlin and from Australia to Los Angeles. Aside from being one of the most top shelf musicians on the planet, she's also an actress, a vocal coach, and one of the coolest damn people I've ever met. It's my pleasure to have her on the show, ladies and gentlemen, Ann-Marita Garsed.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you, Johnny.
You are so welcome. Thank you for being here. Wow.
This
And
is a
all the way
great
from
honor.
Europe.
Yeah, I am in my studio outside Gothenburg, Sweden right now.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Little chilly up there, I imagine, huh?
It's around freezing, whatever that is in Fahrenheit. That's one thing that I've never been able to calculate is the Celsius versus Fahrenheit thing. I'm good with all the other stuff, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's roll into it, shall we?
Yeah.
Awesome. So my first question for you is, how did you decide that you wanted to become a musician?
Um Honestly, I don't even remember if there was a specific moment. It was just the one thing that always wanted to do more than anything else. Um, I've always been a writer. I've always been an actress and all those other artistic endeavors, but singing was my one true love always. And so it just kind of chose me. I think it was I couldn't think of anything else I wanted to do, so
Yeah, I like that. And it's true. I like how you said it chose you because it really is like most of the artists I know, they're very drawn to what they do. It's, obviously there's a level of cause to it, but there is an element of almost like magic to it, you know, I think.
yeah.
And it's drawn to it that way. That's so awesome. So, what was the first experience you remember having with music?
Well, I didn't come from a very musical family. I mean, a lot of people do, and I'm always jealous of them, the siblings that grow up singing harmonies together and that kind of thing. I didn't have any of that. We were farmers, and we lived way out in the boonies in Norway, and we could only get one one TV channel, one radio station, basically, and so not a whole lot of options when it came to music. But my dad was a huge country music fan, and he would play all the old records around the house. He would play, Johnny Cash live at whatever prison,
Ah,
and I remember listening to Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers and Jim Reeves and all those people, and that's where that kind of started. At the time, I didn't appreciate it as much, but it was all I had. So it was like it became a natural part of my development, I suppose. And then, I started mixing it with other genres as I started hearing other genres, and it just became what I do now, I suppose.
wow. Awesome. And then who are the biggest influences on your work and why?
Oh, how long have you got?
As long as you
I'm
need.
I mean, I listen I have a very eclectic taste in music, and I'll listen to old-timey blues like, Bessie Smith and Etta James and all that stuff, but then I'll listen to, Keith Urban or somebody, in contemporary country. And I love oh my gosh, singer-songwriters like Patty Griffin and Emmylou Harris and Sean Colvin and Bonnie Raitt, and then I'll be like totally gaga about old Eagles albums and the Everly Brothers and I mean you name it. It's I just Ella Fitzgerald is like has the most perfect voice I've ever heard. And so I I listen to just about anything.
Awesome. Yeah, and I tell you, it really does come through in your music. I mean, like I said, like I was listening to Company Town, and
Mm.
I think I even posted about this because I was just like, whoa. But it's like, I can see elements of the old time, like folky stuff, like the Willie Nelson stuff. I can see some Jewel in there. I can see some more contemporary stuff. It's almost like you're like a white light of music where you combine everything into like this crazy white light communication. That's just what I get from you. And it's really incredible. I just realized that that's really what I think that is to me when I see you perform. And it's incredible.
Oh, thank you so much. Can I quote you on that?
Of course you can. Absolutely. Hell yes. This is going to be public, so I can't hide.
Awesome. Thank you so much
Oh, no,
for
absolutely.
wow.
Absolutely. So what's the weirdest thing that's ever inspired you?
Ooh, wow. Okay. I get inspired by very weird things, and usually they're old stories. Like I love writing songs about things, historical events. Like immigrant stories and gold rush stories and all that sort of stuff. So I get inspired about the strangest things. And I guess how that started was when I was 14. I was still living in Norway, and my grandpa had passed away, and he'd had this big trunk sitting in the attic with all this old stuff in that we weren't allowed to touch. And once he was gone, I was like, okay, I got to look in this trunk now. I got to see what's in there. And it was a whole bunch of junk. I don't even know why I kept it, but there were some really awesome things too, including a stack of old letters from our family members that had immigrated to the United States in the late 1800s. And I started reading them, and I became familiar with my great grandfather's sister, who was 19 years old when she came to America, and I sort of followed her life as she wrote about it in these letters. And I wrote a novel about her at the age of 14. It didn't get published, but then I eventually wrote a song about her as well, which is on one of my albums called Caroline with the K.
Okay.
And I think that's how my fascination with writing about uh, historical things started. And so since then I've just kind of kept doing that for a big portion of what I do.
Awesome. I love that. And that's so unique. I mean, there's like the kind of the basic food groups that people write about: love, hate, sex, violence, drugs, all these things. And I think that's really refreshing. And it's something that's been really missing in a lot of styles in the last few decades, really. I mean, again, that just makes me think of Willie Nelson because that was like the kind of stuff he wrote about half the time, and that's just great. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, I honestly like I think I've written two love songs in my entire life.
Good for
I've
you.
written I've written a lot of brokenhearted songs, but actual love songs, maybe a couple. Uh,
Yeah.
it's it's sort of hard for me to do. And whenever people talk about, oh, the 6 steps to writing a hit song or and all that stuff, that's for somebody else. I can't do that. I mean, I wish I could. I might
Yeah.
be better off in some ways, but I just got to do it my way.
And that's spoken like a true independent artist, I would say.
Ah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So how has your art influenced other people?
Oh, I have no idea. Other people, as in people close to me, or in general.
Whatever it means to you, it's your interview.
Ah, wow. Okay. I I do believe that a big part of what I do is sort of telling the story behind the song when I'm out playing live and things like that. And I think there are times when people will come up to me after and be like, in tears, going, "That is my story, and this happened to me," and it's sort of I think it moves them. I would, to not be too conceited. I think hearing those stories kind of moves them, and maybe it moves them to, I don't know, take some action in their lives or do something differently. I have no idea, but at that moment, I know that they come up to me and they're always like, "Wow, I really felt that." And for whatever it's worth, I mean, I don't know what it does, but at that moment, I feel like it means something to them. So
Yeah, absolutely. If nothing else, you reached them on some level. What that
yeah.
turns into is up to them. But, and I think there's a big difference between saying, listen to this song, it's going to knock you out, and saying, and like looking and saying, wow, I just played this song and this happened. At
Mm.
that point, you're not being conceited. I think you're just reporting what happened. And it's valid, I mean, you can validly observe that. I think that's wonderful. And that kind of to me is like the mark of a true artist is the ability to touch people on that level where you get an emotive response from them. That's kind of the idea, right?
Yeah, I guess. I just don't want to. I want to be kind of humble about it at the same time. But there are moments where I feel like I do reach people. So, and I really love those moments. They do a lot for me too.
Absolutely. So do you have any pre-show or pre-studio rituals?
Well, I got to do my vocal warm ups. That's a definite ritual. Do all the weird stuff that and
Mm,
all those things. I'm sure you know all about it.
yes, I do.
And but I also really like to at least just have a few minutes to just sit and close my eyes and breathe and kind of get grounded into the situation. I hate being rushed going to a gig and you know, having to set up super fast and then oh no sound check and okay, you got to start now, that part of it is always a bit hard for me because I don't get that moment to just kind of connect with what I'm about to do. Everything else is just still in my system. So if I have that moment to just sit and meditate for a second, that makes a world of difference to me.
100%. And I am very much with you on that. You
Mm,
definitely need that few moments before the show to. I like the way you said it is getting grounded. It's almost like you're almost physically grounding yourself to like the venue or the space or whatever you're doing. At least for me, that's that's part of it, and that's so crucial.
mm.
So, what risks, if any, have you personally taken for the sake of your music?
Whew. Are we talking the risks that paid off or the ones that, devastated my entire existence?
It's open ended. Whatever you feel like telling me, I will absolutely listen.
Oh man, I could totally go off on a tangent on this one, but let's let's see. Risks. Well, I mean, I've I've moved more times than I can count. I've lived in 4 countries on 3 different continents. I've lived in Norway, Sweden, U.S., and Australia. And every time I've made a move, it's always been a risk because you have no idea what's waiting you on the other side and how it's all going to work out. So um, these days, I sort of divide my time between the US and Sweden, and I just spent 3 months in the US, and I go off and do my tours, and then you know do my whatever else is going on, and it's always a risk. You never know if it's gonna pay off in financially or in any other way. So it's always a bit of a gamble, right?
No,
And then,
100%.
I've taken bigger risks in addition to that, where I've signed contracts that I didn't know were gonna totally screw up my life. And but at that moment when I signed it, I, wanted to believe that, okay, this is gonna do something for me, but you don't know that until you're into whatever the next stage of it is gonna be.
Yeah, no, totally. And I have also been in or seen those scenarios as well. And yeah, they can get messy, but it's true. Like you just have this like creative vibe going through. You just want the project to go and to make it big. And it's true. Sometimes you don't think about the potential repercussions should things
Mm,
go south.
yeah. I mean,
Always a
it's
learning experience.
what's that?
It's always a learning experience.
Definitely. And one thing that I have learned that's very important to me anyway is that a contract doesn't really mean a whole lot unless you have the money to sue the other party if they don't uphold their part of the deal. And that's I mean, if there's one thing that I've taken from all this, it would be that.
That is a good lesson and a good point. Actually, I never thought of that, but it's true. It's like it's great to have the right to sue somebody, but court, filing fees and things like that. It costs money to do that. So,
Yeah.
and these guys, I feel like when going into it, probably know that too. The
Yeah.
ones
Yeah.
Canadian, like, they're aware of that fact.
Very
All
true.
right. Yes. So, what's the craziest risk you've ever seen another artist take for their craft?
Ooh. Hmm. Okay. That's a tough one. Wow, you're keeping me on my toes here.
Trying to.
um, I've seen. I don't want to mention any names because I don't, but I've seen some people just completely, they have one thing going and then they realize, no, I'm gonna take up an entirely different instrument and I'm gonna go this direction. And sometimes that is successful, and other times, it's a bit of work. But more power to them if you want to totally reinvent yourself. Sometimes we need to do that. Sometimes we need to just kind of go 180 in the other direction.
Yeah. No, 100%. And yeah, that's always a risk. I mean, if for nothing else, especially I've seen this with bigger acts too, where they do that and they just half the fans love it and half the fans are super upset by it, and you
Hmm.
just never know. I think U2 is actually one of those that's done that a couple times, and Metallica comes to mind as well as one of the
Hmm.
bigger ones that have done
Yeah.
that. Sometimes people love it, sometimes they hate it. It is.
Yeah, yeah, and the old tried and true fans are gonna be like, "Oh, no, 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 we want the old way still."
Mhm.
And so it's hard for any artist to really kind of change direction if they have that solid fan base, I guess.
No, it's very true. So, what is the one thing or the one tool that you absolutely cannot live without as an artist, and why?
Are we talking like actual material things or mm, ideas or
Again, whatever it means to you, it is your interview, so you get to answer however you deem appropriately.
okay. Well, everything for me changed once I learned to play guitar. I that as a singer-songwriter, I was stuck not being able to accompany myself. So, I don't know, I couldn't live without a guitar these days. That's just part of what I do. And even though I'm no virtuoso guitar player, it's functional and it works for what I do. That's one thing, that's a tangible thing. Um, Being able to write the way that I do, just my own way, that's also something that I couldn't live without. I'm totally open to co-writing, but I still got to have my own sort of core, um, my space where I just do it my way. Also, just to express myself in some sort of fashion.
Yeah, no, 100%. And again, I feel you. I never, and even when I've done some songwriting boot camps and things, and I kind of look at it more like building a tool belt, but doing things in sequence in the same way every time. It's a little bit like that's just a little bit confounding to me too. I understand completely.
Mm.
So, what has been the most difficult piece of music for you to create, and why?
Ooh, to create. Um, Well, last year it had taken me a while, but I finished a full length album that I produced on my own. I mean, I had input from other musicians and stuff, but in the end, I was the executive producer and the producer, and that whole body of work was it wasn't easy for a lot of reasons because I did it in the middle of the pandemic, and getting getting things done when things were kind of shut down was a lot harder. Um, so actually getting it physically finished was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. When it comes to actual difficulty in music, I go crazy with harmonies on my own songs. I love just layering harmonies like crazy, and just I lose hours, maybe days, just sitting in my studio doing that. And sometimes it's just too much. and and I kind of get lost in the process, and then I'm just like, this just took over the song and I just got to scrap everything. That happens. So
Right. That's so awesome. Honestly, the more you talk, the more I'm just interested. I need to delve more into your music. I've listened to some, but I haven't covered all the bases yet. But yeah, I love that. And just getting enmeshed in a song like that, like the song at some point, to me, if you're doing it right, the song kind of takes over anyway, you
Mm,
know. And I
yeah.
think that's so great. And that's something that I did definitely notice in some of the stuff that I did hear the of your music, your recorded stuff, is the harmonies are absolutely mind blowing.
Oh, thank you. Wow.
Yeah. No,
Thanks.
seriously, that's wow. And congratulations on doing an album. I mean, I that is not a small feat to produce an album, and especially when you're the performer and the producer, that is a lot of work and a lot
Mm,
of emotional commitment. So, well done. Congratulations on getting that done. That's a big accomplishment.
thank you. I wanted to go a little bit old school. I know that most people release singles these days, which makes a whole lot of sense, and which is probably what I'll continue doing after this as well. But I wanted to do that whole album thing and be the producer and have that under my belt and just kind of okay, done that, you know.
100%. Absolutely. So, if you were going to write a book about your career up to this point, what would you title it?
Ooh. A book. Well, I do write, so I have written quite a bit. I haven't written a whole book about myself, but I might be able to call it something like I had fun.
I like that. That's a good title. I feel like when you ask them that question, they think of like more controversial or like the difficulty side of thing and naming it after that. But you took it the other direction and just made it. I had fun. I love that. That's so great. So, what are your plans for world domination?
Oh, well, I oh wow, that's a tough one. World domination. I in my mind, I've sort of been working on this sort of like one woman show with like almost like a play but a concert at the same time where I tell the stories and almost like bring certain props in to kind of illustrate and do the songs and maybe talks in between about, random things and just kind of turn it into like I don't know. What would you call that? I don't even know what
One
that
woman
would.
show. Sounds like about that's the right way to say it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's been sort of on my mind for a while. I also do want to write a book, not necessarily about myself, but probably inspired by experiences I've had.
Sure. Makes total sense. And then I have one more question for you. And just going back to the introduction to this show, the show again not only is to showcase the best of independent artists, but also explore what inspires them, what drives them, and what they consider their fundamental purpose as an artist to be. So, Ann-Marita, what's your truth?
Whew, my truth. These are really deep questions, Johnny.
Thank you.
Um, my truth is, well, s- to put it simply, your gut feeling will not steer you wrong. This has been a big thing for me to learn through the years. And I've made a lot of mistakes because I haven't listened to my gut feeling, and that's when I've ended up in, some sort of trouble. But every time that I've sort of like steered right back on track by just feeling it out, that has always been the right thing to do. And so I guess my truth is to be true to yourself. It sounds trite and it sounds simple, but I don't know how else to put it, honestly.
That's beautiful. And honestly, the simplest truths tend to be the most powerful, don't they?
Mm.
So I think that's a beautiful way of ending this interview. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so
Um,
much for having me. What an honor.
You are so welcome. And before we do go, though, I want to take 60 seconds and just kind of open the floor to you if there's anything you want to plug, 60 seconds of everything Ann-Marita Garsed. Go.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you can find me online at annmarita.com. That's ANNMARITA.com. And I am Ann Marita Music on most social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. I'm not on TikTok, which I keep
What?
getting crap for all the time these days, but I guess I'm gonna have to do it. And you can check out my latest album, Geography, on all streaming platforms as well.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for being here with me on a cold Saturday. It's been wonderful. And guys, this has been the What's Your Truth podcast. Until next time, later.
Yeah, you follow your own rules and you preach them on to me. But you don't think before you act, and you ain't got no business with me. You know, no. But then what's your truth? Oh, what's your truth? Now you got down on your